Joe, first of all, just thank you for agreeing to share your story because I know that your journey is going to impact somebody because they'll be able to relate to what you've been through. So, first, I want to talk about what was really going on during the time of you struggling with addiction versus what people thought was going on. Because I know for a lot of people from the outside, outsiders may not, they may look like they have it all together. But in reality, there's people are struggling and people may not know unless they're really, really close to them. How was that what you dealt with? What were people seeing from you from the outside public perception versus what was really going on in your heart, in your mind, and in your life at that time?
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me, first of all. I really appreciate it. And I love the opportunity to be able to share this story. I hope it helps a lot of people. Before I dive into it, though, can I give a little preface?
Sure.
um, so, before recovery, I just want to say I had no faith at all. In fact, I kind of resented it. I thought like religion was part of the problem. I used to like run the moment I heard anything about God or church. So um, if there's anyone else who feels that way, I see them and I used to be them. Um, so I'm sharing basically like what worked for me in the hope that it doesn't scare anyone away, but maybe it'll give people permission to be a little bit curious. Because what Jesus did in my life, I like to say, is a miracle. And I hope this will encourage people to consider that healing is possible, you know, through sort of what I went through. And maybe they'll find their own thing that'll work for them.
Well, I
But
think that's really powerful for you to be able to share that because I know in, the book, it talks about surrendering to a higher power and
yeah,
that being a key component for a lot of people in their recovery journey. But before we go to how you got there, Joe, I want to go back to the beginning.
okay.
Paint me a picture. What was going on in your life from what the outside saw versus what you were dealing with that a lot of people didn't realize?
Okay. Yeah. So on the outside, it definitely looked like I had things together. I had a pre-law degree from UC Davis, a thriving career in tech sales, a coffee shop in Pacific Beach with my, owning my own business, and um, um, a beautiful ex-fiance, a nice girl on my arm. But inside was really just drowning in like shame, anxiety, fear, resentment, emptiness, and I had no relationship with God. I was like spiritually bankrupt, chasing sort of this world standard or world's vision of success, and failing to live up to that. So I was managing sort of a failing engagement, starting a new business, while falling apart, like, and feeling alone during a COVID quarantine. Right. So I feel like the quarantine was a little bit of a catalyst to my addiction because before COVID, I was like a functioning alcoholic. I would just drink on the weekends, and I may or may not show up to work on Monday, but but for the most part, I would just drink on weekends, and then with the COVID quarantine, it turned into an everyday habit, like all day, every day. So sort of what like I could go back a little bit further. What sort of shaped that inner struggle was, I was raised by loving parents who sacrificed everything for my two sisters and I. My dad is a retired Navy captain, and he always served with honor and instilled discipline and integrity in us. But we did live in a neighborhood that was like plagued by gang violence, redlining, poverty. Um, at 7 years old, I was assaulted by a gang of older kids who stole my bike. A few months later, I was actually punched in the face at church
Mhm.
by a bully who hit me because my dad wasn't a believer. And that kind of planted my first perception of the world or reality that I lived in. Deep mistrust towards people, systems, especially religion. At 8 years old, I saw my sister's best friend get hit by a car and die right in front of our house. That was my first exposure to death. And from that moment on, it just seemed like tragedy followed me. Um, by 20, I buried more friends than I could actually count.
Wow.
Victims of shootings, overdoses, suicides. My worldview was this like fight to survive and win. So luckily, I poured myself into sports. Unfortunately, some of my friends took a different path with gangs and drugs and other things at a very young age. I didn't really start drinking until I was a little bit older, but um, I poured myself into karate, wrestling, football, track and field, MMA,
Mhm.
and then later into my career. Like these were the things that helped me like feel grounded and like I had some sort of control. I was an international gold medalist in karate, placed fourth in state in wrestling, captained my football team, and eventually I always became the top producer for every tech company I ever worked for.
Wow.
Um, but nothing like ever really filled that void of this like world standard of success. I was like constantly striving and I'd achieve another accolade or another gain another award or recognition, and I'd always feel like it wasn't enough, right?
Mhm.
So that's sort of the this like on the outside, some people would look at me and think I had it together, but the truth is, it was like a constant struggle, and nothing was ever enough, right? But
But you
but
know
yeah,
what? When I'm hearing your story, first of all, I know it's hard to talk about because I can see just you're probably somebody when you're talking about it, you're seeing it again, kind of reliving it in some ways, you know? And
absolutely.
I can imagine like all those things you went through as a kid. Like we don't even think about like how the things we experience, like you said, the bullying, the trauma of losing a family friend so close, your sister's friend at such a young age, and then going through all that and saying, I made it out. I've got to make it out, right? I've got to go on this different path, but then always feeling like is never enough, right?
Mm,
So then you're like, well, the drinking kind of probably came in to help you cope with that. Is that where you found the drinks kind of came in on the weekend, like I deserve this or this is going to help me?
well, in tech sales culture, it's very much work hard, play hard. You have beer on tap in the break room, so or in the kitchen. So like we would go out to these lunches where people are getting hammered, and then we have sales kickoff seminars once a year where it's just a big party. So it was very much play hard, work hard. But I would say around 16 or 17 is where I found what I call the hack, right? It's like a brain hack.
Mhm.
So it was like, oh wow, I get these dopamine hits by getting good grades in school, and I get these dopamine hits by spending time with my family and making my friends laugh, and getting fourth in state in wrestling, and um you know getting touchdowns in football, right? um but then I can get that same feeling if I just take a beer bong or um
Mm.
take a few shots. So it became sort of this like crutch to constantly get that like feeling, and it's no wonder I was struggling. I couldn't do daily life anymore. Daily life wasn't like enough for me, you know.
Because you needed that constant kind of dopamine hit, like that constant.
Absolutely.
Mhm. And so
Absolutely.
when you're going through this, you said you were functioning. Most people from the outside like thought you had it all together. But then COVID hits, which for a lot of people was a lot because it's isolation and all of that. So you said you ended up going to the point of drinking like daily.
Yeah, yeah.
And when
So
did you realize, like, from that point that you're like, huh, this is escalated? Okay, I thought I was okay, but this is escalated. Did you have like that realization?
so it was a rock bottom moment. Um, I basically woke up in jail. Um, I was I found myself in San Diego County Jail, and I was the only person wearing a green jumpsuit, um, which I found from my cellie meant that I was there for life. Um, Come to find out later, yeah, that was my response. But come to find out later, the green jumpsuit's reserved for lifers, um, people who tried to escape, and then also people who um, were violent with staff. So what I found out, I had no memory of like what happened. I just woke up and I literally thought like I killed somebody. Because my cellies told me, "Oh man, what'd you do? You know, why are you in a green jumpsuit?" Oh, that's for lifers, and I'm just like, "What?" Um, well, 7 days later, after quarantine was done, I was able to like actually get on the phone and find out what my charges were, and I learned that while I was blacked out, I ate a whole bag of mushrooms
Hmm.
and um, resisted arrest when the police were called. I guess I was like going on a crazy trip, and I ended up assaulting the police officers who were simply trying to help me.
Hmm.
Um, and that just like broke me. The shame was like unbearable, and I just knew I couldn't keep living like this. I was trying to hold on to like this frat boy lifestyle for as long as I could.
Mhm.
And this was just like the major wake up call.
Mhm. So also,
Uh,
let me make sure I understand this correctly, Joe. So you're going along, COVID hits, you're start notice that your drinking's picking up, you're drinking daily, and then you have this moment, you don't even know how you got there.
uh,
Wake up and you're in jail and you
yeah,
have no clue what has
yeah.
happened. It takes you 7 days of going through the process where you realized what happened.
That's where I was able to get on the phone, and my dad kind of explained everything that happened.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, and yeah, it was just something had to change. There were multiple times where like I've tried AA in the past and I didn't think like it was for me, and I couldn't do the whole God thing, and why do we have to say a serenity prayer, and um there were multiple times where I tried AA because
Prior to the time in jail?
prior to this, yes.
Mhm.
It was just like my rock bottom had to be deeper, you know.
Mhm.
I kept trying to convince myself that I didn't have a problem. Um, in retrospect, it's kind of like maybe the only reason I was good at my job was just so I could like take the rest of the month off after I hit my quota, after I hit my
Mhm.
sales goals, and go party, but
Mhm.
or travel. But all in all, it took something like this for a change to happen.
Mhm. Why do you think it was so hard, and so many people say this, to admit that you had a problem? Why do you think that's so challenging for many people and for yourself?
Um, I think we try to downplay our issues a lot. We don't want to admit that we're a victim,
Mm.
or that we might be struggling with something. We don't want to look weak. Um, for me, it was, football and wrestling. If you got hurt, it was your coach screaming at you, rub some dirt on it. So like, I've never that's like physical pain, but I've never thought of a concept of like, whoa, I might have some mental issues that need some care for and some healing, right? Um, so and then you go into the AA meetings and you hear about the people on Skid Row and you're like, oh, I'm not that bad, like,
Mhm.
you know. So you just kind of convince yourself and live in denial for as long as you could. Um, I remember going into the doctor's office and they always ask you, how many drinks do you have per week? 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4. And I'm like, "Oh, you guys are doctors. You're just being, conservative and modest and, but like they're serious." Um
Mhm.
2 to 4 drinks, I guess, is the normal for everybody else. For me, it was like a 30 pack a day, you
Mhm.
know. So, on the weekends when we're partying, um but yeah, it's that switch is humbling. Um you know, you you never think that the that your issues are as bad as everybody else's, you
Mhm.
know.
Did
And then it
people around you know, Joe, before you had the jail moment? Did people say, "Hey," like maybe your ex-fiancé at the time, did anybody say, "What's going on, Joe?" Did you find that anyone tried to help you during those times?
in the professional world, no, nobody had any idea. But as far as like my friends and the people I was partying with goes, yeah, absolutely. I'm because of the bullying as a kid, I obviously started working out as a young age and wanted at a young age and wanted to like never be bullied ever again. But like my friends would say, like, dude, you can't be going out and getting hammered like that. You're too big. We can't carry you. Like,
Mhm.
so those were some early signs early on that there might have been an issue. But I was able to always keep it together during the week, and always hit my numbers and put the professional face on. You know,
Mhm. But then you find yourself, you're in this jail cell. You're like, "Oh my goodness, I I'm blacked out. I don't even remember what happened." And you say, "Okay, something has to change."
yeah.
What did you do from that point? What was your first step when you said in that jail cell moment, something has to change? What was the first thing you did?
So I am just kind of sitting there, like trying to figure out what the heck happened. Flashes of memories of this and that. But um, there was, I think it was the first or second night, I was on the bottom bunk and I just like emotionally kind of broke down and was like quietly sort of tearing up and crying because again, I thought I killed somebody. But and then of course, you don't want the other guys to hear you. So I actually started praying to I don't even know what at the time. I literally said, God, Buddha, Allah, my universe, my creator, like whoever you are, if you're real, just tell me what to do. You know I'm good at following instructions. Just tell me what to do. Um, and I feel, Jesus answered in that moment. My heart was kind of softened to the idea that there might be a higher power. That um, for the first time, I probably should stop blindly leading and start listening to everybody else, to Jesus, to the people who my loved ones, to the professionals who could help me heal. Because I lost everything in that moment. My former fiance left me, basically said, she's done with this, which I put her through a lot. That with her went would have the coffee shop would have gone with her. My business. The only thing that I had, because we actually both got laid off during because of the quarantine, because of COVID. Um, so we were like, let's open a coffee shop. We don't have to, so we don't have to work for anybody anymore. And it felt like I was losing everything. But once I sort of said this prayer, I felt a little bit of a shift in me that like everything was going to be okay.
Mhm.
Um, and I feel like it was from that moment on that God started building something better. Um, and since surrendering, the blessings, it's more than I've ever dreamed or imagined.
Mhm. So what did
Uh,
that feel like? I know when you said that prayer, it's like, I can't do this anymore. Was it a feeling of like a warmth or a peace? Because you said something shifted.
oh, it was a little bit of peace, but then also I was still like uncertain. Like, is this really real? Right. So um it was so I started exploring it and being open to the idea because of it. And then it was weird because when you're in a green jumpsuit, even the guards ignore you, they skip you for meals, like,
Mhm.
because they're thinking, oh, you must have assaulted one of our fellow officers or our fellow guards. So I felt like alone. And for some reason, one guard, I wish I like got his name, but he felt like some compassion towards me. And I told him like, hey, can you just give me a book, a newspaper, a dictionary, like anything, just so I can focus on the words and my mind will stop running and going crazy. He came back with this book called Plan B. When
Mhm.
your plan fails, God's plan prevails. And so I'm like,
Mhm.
just reading it. It's 100 letters from inmates at Donovan Correctional Facility about how they went to this like event, and at the event they felt like forgiven.
Mhm.
And these guys did things that like you and I wouldn't forgive people for. Um, so I'm reading through this book, and then at the end, it talks about like the people in the Bible who
Mhm.
did horrible things. You know, Moses was a murderer.
Mhm.
Apostle Paul killed more Christians than anybody, and King David arranged for someone's death. Like crazy stuff. And it's funny because at the end of the book, it asks the reader to do four things. It was like accept Jesus, repent, say this salvation prayer, and then share your testimony. So I'm reading through this book, and this is like a few days after I'm kind of starting to understand what happened and talking to my dad. And I go to my arraignment and they tell me my charges. So like, but I have this book the whole time and I'm like reading through it. And then the book says to like say this salvation prayer out loud. So I said it out loud, and then I wrote it down because one of the inmates told me like because I was going to take the book with me, and they were like, "No, that's bad luck. If you take stuff with you, it's bad luck. It means you might end up back here." And I was like, "Oh, I don't want that." So so I so I wrote the prayer down and then said it again. Um, and the second time I said it, my cell door pops open and it's my turn for day room. So I immediately run to the phone and I call my dad. And my dad says, Joey, don't say anything. We're bailing you out. I'll see you in 4 hours.
Mm.
And like, for the timing of it to like happen right where,
Like you said the prayer.
yeah, I
Mhm.
was like, oh my gosh, like something's real about this. And so yeah, and I think it was because I said that prayer. And I finally surrendered, right?
Mm.
Uh, when you're in jail, you have no control over when you eat, when you um, can sleep. Like you know, not only do the guards in the jail have their rules, but the inmates have their rules too. You have to work out at certain times. Like, just it was crazy. And it felt like I was freed from
Mm,
not just jail, but my addictions in a way.
wow. So your dad comes to get you. When you walk out, it's like you've had this experience with God. So for the first time, because I know you said you'd always felt like, I don't believe in religion. That isn't me. But then you have this moment where you're like connected and understand, like you feel in your heart that God's real. Like you're like, oh my goodness, God is
Yeah.
real. I can change. I can do something different. So once you got out and your dad, bailed you out, did you go into treatment or what did you decide to do at that point?
So part of so what we were trying to do was to get a bail reduction meeting. They gave me an exaggerated bail because of how severe the charges were. I think I had like 9 felony charges, 3 from each officer, and there were 3 officers, and then I was looking at like 27 years in prison,
Oh,
and so um, part of the sort of agreement was, hey, if I go to a high security rehab, would you guys consider lowering the bail? Well, there were some things that happened, and the second time I was in front of the judge, it was a completely new judge, and this judge says absolutely not. So that's when we were like, okay, you know what, like we need to just pay the bail, whatever it is. Um, so I get out and I'm thinking like, oh well, I don't really need to go to rehab now because they didn't lower my bail. Still kind of like that addiction
mhm. Were you still thinking
tendency.
you're facing the 27 years too?
So then there's that, right? So we're thinking like the 27 years. We talk with the public defender, and they're saying, hey, you know what, like you should really consider going to rehab. It will look good for the court, but also like you need to admit you need help. So I start looking for rehabs, and I had Kaiser at the time, and the high security rehab they wanted me to go to was like $50,000 a month,
Well,
and it would have been out of pocket because Kaiser, doesn't does they have their own resources that they have to go with. So I was just like, oh my gosh, like, so I end up calling Kaiser, and they tell me, oh, you can't just go straight to rehab. You have to have been working with a therapist first, and then you have to try IOP, and then fail at that, and then you might go to residential. And I was like, what? And I was like, no, you don't understand, like this is life or death. Like I'm facing 27 years, like, and the guy on the phone goes, okay, well, let me see what I can do. I'll talk to the nurses, or I'll talk to the therapist and see if someone can meet with you on their lunch. So one of the therapists meets me over the phone on her lunch. Again, I'm just like, oh wow, like, you know, someone's lining things up. So this therapist, again, I wish I remember her name, but she says, okay, we'll go ahead and get you into residential, but give me let me find one for you first. So give me some time and I'll call you back. So um 2 hours later she calls me back and says, hey, I have, bad news. No rehab wants to accept you because of your charges. They're afraid you're gonna assault staff.
oh,
Um,
no.
so I was just like kind of broken. And then she goes, "But let me try looking for something outside of San Diego County." So she calls me back an hour later and says, "Hey, um, I have good news. I found a rehab for you. But the bad news is, it's an all male Christian rehab. Are you okay with that?" Right? So I'm like,
Whoa.
yeah. I'm like, "Oh my gosh," no, I'm more than happy with that. I'm on this, like, spiritual sort of explorative mode, that sounds great, like, let's do it. So I went to Covenant Hills in San Clemente.
Wow. Joe, you gonna make me cry. 'Cause that is like, wow.
And so, like, these are, like, and there's so many more. There's so many more little weird coincidences and signs, that I was just like, "What?" And Einstein's quoted saying, coincidences are God's way of staying anonymous."
Mm, I love that.
So, so I was just like, "Okay, like, let's do it." And the more of these signs that I saw, I was just like, had this, like, feeling of, like, everything's gonna be okay. Uh
Mm,
So I ended up going to the Christian rehab. Of course, there was some difficulty at the beginning, but in the end, I ended up getting baptized there, and um, I finally felt like I found something that was real,
mm.
right? But
Wow. That is the story. I mean, so you go through the rehab and all of that, and you're still thinking, "Am I gonna face these 27 years?" How did that end up getting worked out? Because we know it's not 27 years because I see you here today and you still look
yeah,
really
so so I did. So not only did Kaiser approve me to go to rehab, they gave me 56 days there. Usually it's only 28. They gave me 56, and then I got out, got into sober living more locally, close by to my coffee shop. So I lived into sober living for about 2 months. Would go to the coffee shop, do a bunch of work, come back. I was like building things and fixing stuff, and basically, like, you know, after going through rehab, trying to make a living amends with my ex. So I was, um, trying to be of service and just like do things without asking, and I just felt like this whole completely different person. Um,
Mm,
then I start searching for a home church, and I'm going all over San Diego. Some are still locked down because of COVID, things like that. But I find this amazing church. It happened to be the one closest to my house. Like, again, another weird coincidence. And I I was going to the church for a while. I also started a recovery group at the church. Um, it was like basically AA, but we openly talk about Jesus and God. Um, and then I got a bunch of letters from previous employers, family members, friends, people in the community, my pastor. Uh, a lot of mitigation material. And then 2.5 years later, I
that's
finally
how long
have,
it took for them to bring you to trial? Wow.
yeah, yeah, COVID back. They were backed up with COVID cases. There was a lot of reasons why, but that whole time was very stressful. A lot of praying, a lot of meditating and hoping and begging, but also a lot of peace through it. Like an unexplainable peace. Just like I just felt like everything was going to be okay. You know, and so we have our hearing, and they paint this really like horrible picture of me to the judge. Um, and that feeling was just like, whoa, like they're taking something that was like very like minusculely true, and making it look like I'm like this guy who, goes out and tries to beat up cops every night. Like it was really hard to like hear all that. And then but then seeing all the mitigation material, all the work I've done, my sponsor vouching for me, just everything, all the work that I've done, I end up getting sentenced to 6 months in jail. All right. Um,
So 27 years potential down to 6 months.
6 months, and I actually only had to serve for this stint 70 days, because 1 day in jail counts as 2 days in prison, right? Um, so 180 days, we cut that down in half to 90. I can't think right now. And then I also got 20 days credit for when I initially got arrested. So I only had to do 70 days.
Mm.
And um, it was either that or um, try to take this to an even deeper trial. And if I lose that, go to prison for 27 years.
So
Right.
you took it.
So I took it. And that was just a wilderness experience. Like, um, that was even more miracles and crazy things happening in jail. Like, I did. I'll just give you kind of little tidbits, but I didn't drink or use a day in jail. They have, they're making their own alcohol. They're they're now like using Suboxone to get high, and just just like crazy things in there. But also like I I met another guy in recovery. We started our own little AA meeting. I'm in there like praying for people, reading the Bible, reading the Bible to people, like,
Right.
and like just like these these men, like practically everyone in there is in there because of addiction.
Wow.
Like every single person in there. And and I'm just like, man, like, the things you've done, the things these guys have done, it's always because they're, you know, messing around with meth, or there's drugs always involved in some way. And it's like, if we just put these guys in rehab, like the jails would be empty, you know?
Mm.
So that just like I felt completely protected in there. Did not get in one single fight, argument, or altercation the entire time I was in there. For the first like I want to say for the first like 50 days, there was not a single fight since I was in there. And then
Mm.
like on day 50, all hell broke loose. It was like one one fight happened, and then like everyone just started like there's one over here, one over there, like um but that experience was a miracle in itself. And then coming out of it, the day I got out, my former fiance um shares with me that she can't do this anymore, and we end up she helped, stuck with me all through the trial, the proceeding, the court proceedings, everything. And then this was me being away for that long was just like kind of the last straw for her. We're still very good friends, and
Mm.
we own and operate the coffee shop together. I'm more of sort of a like behind the scenes guy, who comes in, and actually I have to go there tonight to fix some things, but like that right there is like a testimony, like only God can provide that level of forgiveness where I'm still able to, you know, have a good relationship with the ex and run a business together with her.
Mhm.
Um, so it's just been amazing,
And well, you
and
know what I was gonna say that's really amazing too about that is like you have this throughout your journey where you're impacting people, right? You're like, okay, I'm gonna do a little AA meeting here. You're already in that. And now I fast forward today, you work at American Addiction Centers, you help veterans actually get into treatment.
yeah, yeah.
So now you're in a profession that you get to help people every day. What is that like?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I used to sell Salesforce. I used to sell Salesforce to mortgage companies and banks, right? And I look at it as like, okay, I used to sell Salesforce and I would like hit my sales quotas, I'd hit my sales goals, and it funded my addiction. I would be able to go on these vacations to these all exclusive resorts and this and that. And then now over here. I like found a profession where I get to use Salesforce to help people get into treatment. Um, and the veteran community is a very underserved community. You know, Addiction, suicide, military sexual trauma, PTSD. All of it is just most of the patients I serve are in some very, very difficult situations, and um, things that outweigh a lot of what I've gone through. um, but it just feels so rewarding to be able to um, serve a community like this, especially because I have close ties, like, with my dad, and having these GI Joe military guys around the house all the time. And but like, I looked at them all as like these superheroes, and now looking back, it's like, oh man, like these guys I looked at as superheroes could have been struggling with the same things we're all struggling with today. This disease doesn't have, so it's not just one group, but the veteran group specifically seems to be hit the hardest with it.
Mhm.
There's this stigma where if you admit to having it, you're grounded. You can't fly anymore. If you admit to having it, you might be discharged. You won't be medically fit to serve anymore. So a lot of them had to deal with it in privacy the entire time they were in the military, and now they're out
Mhm.
as veterans and can do whatever they want now. And sure enough, they're using the same hack I used to
Mhm.
get some sort of comfort and release from daily life. So it's just so rewarding, and I feel so blessed. I feel like God definitely put me in this role.
Wow.
Um,
Like, it was like everything conspired with God to give you the ability, first of all, the compassion, right? Going through something like that for yourself has to give you a level of compassion and empathy
mhm,
for other people. Then to be able to go to the jail and see that this is a bigger problem. If we look at the jails, the majority of the people were there because it's some connection to an addiction. And you're
yeah,
like, "Oh my gosh." So you're realizing, I'm sure, that you have like this bigger purpose in life. And now
absolutely.
I see that you're doing that. So when you look back on your own journey, what do you think keeps you sober? You're 4 years, right?
Mhm. Over 4
What do
years.
you mean? Over 4 years. So I know faith is a huge part of what keeps you sober. What other things are you doing now to maintain this recovery?
Yeah, prayer and surrendering to God, definitely. I mean, you hit it on the head right there. Um, Being involved with the community. This job is so great. I get to go to community events and resource fairs, and the YMCA surf camp, and uh, it's just community with, like, I feel like I'm connected and like plugged back in, if that makes sense. My church family, that community piece is amazing too. And but the main thing I would say, and basically what you know God and Jesus is asking me to do, is to be of service to others. Right? That's all he's asking. And that keeps me sober.
Mm.
Whether it's through like AA, church, or my work. I currently sponsored two men, um, and I actually host a Christian mini church at my coffee shop. We have one tonight at 7 p.m. But 12 stepping is what's going to keep you sober.
Mhm.
Um, and that's all that's asked of us, love him and love your fellow man. um and it just, I'm like, I'm free now.
So that's because that was one of the final questions I always ask people is like, if you had a word to describe what it's like to be in recovery now, I think you already said it. Is it the free? Is free the word, or is that just one of the words that comes to mind?
That's one of the words.
Okay.
Happy, joyous, prosperous, free, life, all of that. But the main word I would say is peace.
Ooh.
uh, not like the peace that you chase. It's like the peace, the unexplainable, supernatural peace that is always with you through all circumstances, right? My garage got broken into and all my tools got stolen like a year ago, right? um Old Joey would have flipped out. Like, I would probably would have ran around the neighborhood driving, looking for who stole my tools. Like, these are the tools I used for the coffee shop, kind of my livelihood. Like, um, I would have gone on this like manhunt, and supernaturally, I'm just like, whatever. It's just stuff. Like, I'll get new ones. Like, and you just, this like weird peace overcomes you where you're able to like just accept reality that you're going to get flat tires. People in your life are going to die. Um, you're going to be in disagreements. You're going to run into difficult people who are hard to love, and um, it's okay. Like, it's okay. I just, things roll off my shoulders now. It nothing. I'm like invincible. Nothing can touch me. Um, and that's the word of the day. Peace.
Peace. Peace that surpasses all understanding. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That is cool, right? So, well, thank you because I so appreciate you, Joe, just sharing your journey with me. And I think it's through sharing our stories, we overcome by the power of our testimony.
Mhm.
So, the more we can share our journeys with other people, the more other people feel like it's possible for them. So, thank you so much for sharing your
Yeah.
story, Joe.
Thank you. This is so great. And just kind of as a closing thought, a little quote from Joe, sober Joe, responsible Joe. Um, God is trying to bless you if you can just accept it and stay out of his way.
I love that. God is trying to
But,
bless you. And you are proof that even in the darkest of moments, that there is hope. That even
yeah,
when you think there is no hope, there can be a light. And I
yeah,
think it is so powerful for people to see that
yeah.
because you can only imagine as you go back and you're in the green jumpsuit and you're like, how did I get here? And it seems like everything's falling apart. But then as everything was falling apart, it fell back together.
Oh yeah,
That
yeah.
is just like a
And
powerful story.
I'm newly engaged.
What?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, newly engaged to the love of my life and her son. They bring me so much joy. You know, And if Jesus and redemption was, able to find me in jail, nobody's too far gone. It doesn't matter what you did. It doesn't matter, um, if you might have done some things that other men and humans can't forgive you for. It doesn't matter. Um, God will forgive you. And there's a saying that Rick Warren shares. It goes, if you want forgiveness, tell it to God. If you want healing, tell it to your fellow man. And I'm telling you, all of AA, millions of people have gotten sober from AA alone. But that's the basis of AA, is just sharing your testimony, what you're going through, what your hurts, troubles, and hangups are, and it works. it, it gets you sober. So, like me, I hope I've softened people's hearts to the idea, and you might just give it a shot. If millions of people are getting sober, with this, cure, imagine if it was something like cancer or diabetes. Like, I would be doing everything to like find a cure. I would go vegan. I would travel to other countries and see what they have. And this, like, I would be doing everything to cure my disease, or my illness. And in this case, if you have the disease of addiction, AA, clinical, evidence-based, backing work, rehab, um, get a sponsor, find a higher power. It'll keep you sober and free from this hold.
Yes, so true. Well, thank you so much. And you've given us so many golden nuggets and so much wisdom. So I appreciate you sharing your story with us today.
Thanks so much. This was so great.